Going one.
Cool. It looks like we are recording.
Awesome. Right. They all like the content that we did last week and what you shared. And I think it's amazing that it was able to separate my recording from your recording, put them together. I was like, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
You could get a lot of content just from that, I feel like.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you guys, like there's two ways we can continue doing these. We could just have like this long extended conversation that is really cool in its totality, or we can have a bunch of little conversations that are really good as individual clips. Like, what do you want the focus to be? Obviously you get clips off of the first one too, but
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you can, like, we talked about, even though we were talking about grass-fed beef, we were talking about labeling, we were talking about how grass-fed beef is raised. And I feel like with certain, people's attention span is 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think that's the average. I don't know how it is about more educational things, or if like you actually invited them to those live, like recording live events, like they're probably a little more than that. But if it depends on what our intentions are. Like, are we just trying to just punch people with it, like little bits of information at a time, or are we, trying to compel people to, sit and watch?
I mean, I feel like with a music band, you'd probably sit and jam a few times, and then once you have your hit songs, you re-record those in a radio-friendly way. So I'd say we're at jam phase, right? Just kind of let's see what the three of our minds churn up together, and then we'll find the hit.
I like it. I'll join the band. I'll join y'all's band. That's good for me. Well, I don't know.
You're on Triangle.
Yeah. I'll be on the dinghy. I don't know, Rod. You guys want to start, and I'll just follow? I mean, whatever you want.
Cool. Well, I'll just bring up your short video then. Cool. Like I said, I love the short video. You really touched on. We're all talking about regenerating land, but what we're not talking about is how that is possible, and how you can't just sugarcoat or put a Band-Aid on a broken industrial agricultural practice with a label and say you're regenerating the land. It takes regenerating the actual community. And we need to know what that means. So I'd love to hear, maybe we each give our own belief on how we see that and how we envision that and how we think it's going to help our future.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. One of my friends, he's a farmer down in South Africa who works in like post-apartheid, agricultural communities. And 2 or 3 years ago, he said that to me. He said, it's impossible to regenerate the soil unless we regenerate the communities that depend upon the soil first. Our work begins in the soul of communities and extends to the soil of our ecosystem, is what he said. And although not like a revolutionary concept, that's pretty simple. Start from the inside out. What it looks like, I think, in the local food and regenerative agriculture space is unparalleled in terms of its potential impact. So much food today is being consumed without a face to it. And I mean that in like the full broad spectrum of what a face could mean, right? So like, for instance, you go online, you buy some meat, it says, United States produced. We know that most of the beef that's labeled USA produced is not even USA produced. It's produced in New Zealand and Australia and trucked. And for the last couple of months, it's been in the USA. But even if it was produced in the United States, like it was produced in Montana and then shipped to Texas and then shipped to the West Texas and then shipped to New York State or New Jersey, where you guys are, Virginia, where I'm at. And it just has collected thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. And so when you look at, what community that meat and that support that you as the consumer just gave to that system, like where does that go? It's groundless. It has no face to it. Like, did you support the original farmer who made, 5 to 10%? Did you support that local farmer's community? Did the taxes placed on top of that sale go to the global, national type global system? Did it go to the local community in which the food was produced? I mean, like, you could look at this from thousands of different angles. And yeah, it might be okay beef, or pork or chicken or duck or oysters or salmon or whatever it is. But if that product didn't facilitate communal healing in the place that it was produced, it's just extractive. Just like, growing a hay crop or a corn crop or a soybean crop in a field, producing that and exporting all of that food and nourishment and nutrients, if some of those things could even be considered nourishment. But for now, let's just say nourishment, we just ship it off. Now we have to bring fertilizer back. We have to bring imports in. If you export, you have to import. And so when you're exporting the soul of the communities, via this very convenient Whole Foods based, second, 2-day delivery to your door online model, what do those communities now have to import because of all the exportation that's going on?
I always think of quinoa with this, because I believe most quinoa is produced in Peru. And if you talk to any Peruvian in Peru, they don't eat quinoa.
It's exactly right.
Yeah,
it's exactly right.
You're extracting. You're forcing labor on communities to extract a product to bring to another culture, so that their economics make sense to them, even though in reality it's only truly benefiting, the economics and the well-being of its end user.
Yeah.
Because these people are living the same life with or without that quinoa.
Right.
It's the displacing foods of modern commerce. As we know from Weston Price World, it displaces people off of their indigenous lands because they want to grow a certain crop or raise a certain animal. So they clear out not only the wildlife, but the people and the indigenous cultures with them. So it displaces nutrients in the body. These fake foods were displacing, the bone structure and the fertility of these people as they, were replacing them with these commodity crops. So it's like edible bargaining chips in my lingo. It's like that's what food's become. It's just this thing that moves around the world to make somebody some money, and the end user just gets sick from it. So the planet gets sick from the start of it. The end user gets sick. I don't know. Where are we at?
Yeah.
So we saw with the Everglades in Florida and sugar production. It's that whole territory just got destroyed, and the people living there were living in terrible conditions to extract a commodity product to sweeten our foods and create highly toxic foods.
Yeah. And I think this I love that bargaining chip phrase, Kevin. That when we view nourishment from that perspective, from this global exchange or commodity, not local neighbors working together to co-create a much more official or much more supportive community, it forces us into a scale that is just you can't defend the scale with the term regenerative. It's just impossible. We extend out of that lingo. So, for instance, there's an organization in the Mid-Atlantic here that's a big egg aggregator. They aggregate a lot of different farms' eggs, and they're not the greatest. But for now, let's just say that's enough details. And I was talking to one of their directors of like ecology or whatever his title was. And he said, now listen, I'm not entirely sure about this term regenerative, because if everyone in the state of Kentucky, let's say, were to eat one egg today, our organization, which was worth $50 million or something large, we couldn't produce 1% of one egg a day for just Kentucky citizens. And we are this commercial conglomerate, like we are really high scale, high production. And I'll never forget the gentleman I was with who was on our team, who was much more fast thinking than I am. He looked at him and he said, why are we concerned with one organization providing all the eggs every Kentuckian needs? What if we just give every Kentuckian 2 chickens and we just go form a new company with this $50 million? I mean, like, when you're forcing commodities, when you're forcing scale so that we could have this international or even, national trade is big enough, even national exchange of quote unquote nourishment and foods, calories is obviously the only thing that it truly is. You force farmers into a scale that, I don't know, one, it degenerates the soil. It's very hard to regenerate soil at that scale, but also 2, it extends that work outside of the community. It leaves the human scale, as I would call it, right? The human scale necessitates a community. Industrial scale necessitates profit, which as we know, is not a good way of measuring, human activity.
I have a friend and a buyer of ours who suggested that instead of calling those producers farmers, you call them food manufacturers.
I like it.
And he was totally right. I'm like, you're right. Like, they shouldn't be called farmers. It's not. They're food producers. They're manufacturers. We know what farming is, and that's hands-on dirt, and that could be our own definition. You know what I mean? That could be Google's definition. I don't know, but at the end of the day, we know the difference between work ethic, between sustainability, between health. We know the difference.
I like to think we seem to be searching for the next new word to replace what was sustainable, then became regenerative. But I'm leaning into a permaculture kind of realm, because permaculture does include the human community in the picture. It's not just simply techniques to get the most yield out of a small space or whatever. But it's like relational farming. So farmer has a relationship to the soil, the ecosystem, the animals, the plant, and then also a good relationship with their customers and vice versa. So the relational energy web is exponentially just spreading and strengthening without us throwing away our money to the Bezos' Whole Foods and watching that just evaporate into their, deep pockets.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like that. Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass, she has this phrase where she says they're not resources, they're relations. And I think that's beautiful. I like the idea of relationship farming or relational farming, or, whatever you want to call it. Because it's true. It's exactly, what it is. Because when you allow a food manufacturer to be called a farm, let alone slapped with the label regenerative on it, so now everybody wants to buy their quote unquote manufactured calories. That organization, when it extends out of the human scale, it tends to erode the community at its core, right? For what the community is celebrated for or wants to be celebrated for, right? So here in Virginia, great farmland. Like 1.7 million acres under cattle as of 2021 or something like that. Obviously not all regenerative happy cows, but we have open land, and we're an agricultural state, that's for sure. But in 2021, the USDA in their agricultural census documented that 801 smaller scale farms in the state of Virginia went out of business. They just closed their doors. So 801 farms we lost in 2021. And that's partly due to urban sprawl in DC and some other problems. But it's also, farming locally is hard, right? When consumer realizes that they can get a quote unquote regenerative product from a soil building and carbon sequestering biodiversity manufacturing engine from Bozeman, Montana, at Whole Foods at any time of the day they want, at any price that they want, it could be delivered to their door the exact same day. Why do they need to depend on local farmers to produce anything at all? And so local farmers, they lose financing. Local farmers, they lose markets. Local farmers are forced to compete. Local farmers are forced to spend more time on the road delivering their provisions and foods than farming. We did a study back in 2020. We surveyed about 1,000 farms, Commons did, and we discovered that the average farmer in the Mid-Atlantic works 87 hours a week farming, 37 hours a week marketing, and their average take home is about 18 grand. Obviously that's average. That's not everybody. But the point is that's streamlined data. When you look at the average local human scale regenerative family farm, they're below the poverty line and they're working about 100 hours a week at the least. A third of that time is just on the road at farmers markets, on sales calls, working on websites, not walking the land, like Masanobu Fukuoka, who wrote, in my opinion, the definitive book on regenerative agriculture called One Straw Revolution back in the 1940s and 50s. He said that the delineator, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's much more beautiful. He's like a poet, philosopher, Masanobu Fukuoka was, but he said the key indicator for determining the regeneration, or he used a different word, ecologically centric or something, status of a land is the farmer's footprints. Does the land have footprints of its farmer all across it? Because if it doesn't, it's a manufacturing engine. It cannot be regenerative. And so if we're having our local farmers forced into competition systems that are just cycling down, and it's not waves lifting everybody up, it's storms tearing everything down, we also are forcing our farmers to be delivery drivers. And that makes absolutely no sense. We are losing local farms. Our communities are degrading because consumers have access to what they perceive to be as equal, if not better, products at a better price with higher convenience online or at Whole Foods. And so when we're thinking about like farming from the inside out and regenerating the soul of our community to then heal its soils, what that really looks like is helping your neighbor. Like, in my opinion, if you buy food and you can't look into the eyes and soul of the person who produced that food and say, I'm supporting you so that you can support me. The air that your trees and grasses produce when they sequester carbon and undergo photosynthesis is the air I breathe. If that's not the cycle that is being created by your food purchasing habits and daily activities, it can't be regenerative. It can't be regenerative.
I at least shake the hand of like a sibling of yours, or
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't all need to have direct face-to-face conversation.
Yes.
But can I at least like just embody the energy of someone in your direct circle?
Yes. Yeah, and we have to. That's a great point, Ron. It's like somehow, and I think Bonin and Commons, like if we have a core universal link with each other, I think it's exactly that. It's farmers need to farm. Organizations need to help, like us, need to help farmers farm, but not get in the way between the farm and the consumer, right? Yep. That there's a difference there. We can help farmers farm, but we don't want to eradicate the individual identity of the farm. We want to bring that identity into this, what we would call a collective consciousness, where the consumer comes in, they buy some beef. It might come from Dragonfly Farms, Tripoli Farms, and Wildem Farm, 3 of our farmers here. But they know what those families look like. They know what the land looks like. They're welcome at those farms anytime. But the farmer, those 3 farms per se, don't have to facilitate that sale. They don't have to facilitate the delivery of that sale or the inventorying of the meat or the taxes at the end of the year or any of that stuff. They just farm. They heal their environment so that when people support them, and they breathe, that air that they breathe is cleaner, right? The water that they bathe in and swim in the creeks and the rivers and the ponds and the streams in is cleaner because of that relationship. That's a great point.
Yep. And it's like they're sharing, they're sharing wisdom, and not every farmer can grow everything or raise everything that people want, that most consumers want. Why not share that? Share that network amongst each other. Figure out how to collaborate and focus on what you're really good at and what you enjoy doing. I would love farmers to like enjoy their work. We lose farmers all the time in New Jersey, especially going back to the point you were making. I think 25 years ago, there was over 100 dairy farmers in the state of New Jersey. We're down to 40. And we're down to 40 because it's hard work. They're all dependent on commodity production. So big tankers come to their facility, take all their milk, bring it to another facility, commingle it, and then disperse it among stores. But they're getting paid by those facilitators what they think their milk is worth. And if they had direct sale to consumer, they can 400 times that.
Yeah.
That will generate more revenue for them. They have direct relationship with who they're providing with the community with, but because we won't legalize raw dairy in the state of New Jersey, they don't have any other option.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Heckman reports Jersey gives up $100 million to PA over that state line to get the milk. So we were once the biggest raw milk producer in the country. We had tuberculosis clinics using like clinically created medicinal raw milk to treat very sick people. And what happened? I don't know how things can take such a right turn in, I think, relatively short time. But
Wow.
we are now the last state dragging along with the legalities. We have pet milk status now. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You throw a pet milk label on your jar and you can sell it to people.
Yeah.
So you already
So
have to be
the
in the
animals,
know.
the animals can consume all the other animals' milk, but we can't for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more nonsense that I care than we care to admit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love, and I think, touching on community and us figuring out ways to collaborate, even though you're in Virginia and we're in New Jersey, I think it's fantastic. That is the one benefit of technology is we can connect these networks, but it has to be educational.
Yeah.
We're trying to shift a very powerful financial paradigm. And the only way that can be done is through community, is by people, by consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Which which in my opinion, I think is the greatest aspect of hope that we have people, and people are the solution.
Yep.
It's not like systems need to change. It's not that we need, better governments, or we have to wait for different senates to change over, or companies have to be built, or new road systems or train lines need to be constructed. Like, none of those things have to happen for a more beautiful world to be created. And it's as simple as find a community, nourish that community so that the community can nourish you. And I think what you are doing at Bone In and what we're doing at Commons, it's not the destruction of the idea that you need to know your farmer, but it's rather the construction or the rebuilding of an older system, a much more indigenous system, where you have to have a relationship with your community or your farmers, with a huge S at the end of that. Because if you truly believe there's one farm that can produce all of your nourishment, you are missing it entirely. You have confused a farm for a manufacturing company or engine or Whole Foods. Whole Foods is not a farm. And rather, like, there's like, it's exactly. And so it's not know your farmer. It's get to know your community, which happens to be farmers. There's a lamb producer who produces the greatest grass-fed and finished lamb, known to the region. You have a beef producer, you have a network of beef producers, you have good chicken producers, you have veggie people working on the same lands in a cooperative system with different chicken farmers. Like, you have this whole emergent diversity building and building and building into a very stable state. When that nourishment is being produced and consumed by a community. And so I think one of the more degenerative aspects, and maybe this is a very progressive thought for the space, but, I got into food and agriculture like in the local food movement of like the early 2010s. I don't know if that's a real thing, but to me, it felt like everybody was saying, like, local food, know your farmer, get to know your farmer. It was at the time where Joel Salatin and Apolyphase were saying, and all these other business people that got into the agriculture space, they were saying, like, if you're selling meat locally and you're not producing all the meat your consumers will buy, they're not going to buy from you, they're going to buy from other people. But it was a rhetoric, a philosophy founded in competition and bifurcation, and not collaboration and collectivity and everything else. And so, no, I don't think people should know their farmers. I think knowing their farmers, this rugged, individually, alone, siloed approach. I think the rugged individuality of farmers, being like rugged individualists from the sense of, I'm your farmer, I produce all of your needs, I don't need anybody's help, is as degenerative as Tyson chicken farming. I mean, yeah, Tyson chicken farming has some pretty bad ecological impacts, but this has some very bad, economic or social impacts. Focusing down on one single farm as if that farm is doing something that no other farm in the entire country or globe are doing is absolutely ridiculous. There are 10 farms in our network that produce amazing beef. And if we could fit more farms in the network, if we could bring more consumers on board, that is to say, there would be 100 farms in a network producing amazing beef. There's not a single one of those farms that is producing better beef than anybody else. It's better for their local context. On this farm, this beef's amazing. And on this farm, that beef's amazing. And on this side of the Appalachian Mountains, this beef is amazing. And it's contextualized. It's local, right? It's autonomous individuality working together in a wonderful community. That's the hope. It's knowing your farmers, not, knowing Whole Foods or knowing a single farmer. And so what we tell our customers, or the people that we would love to be our customers all the time, because when we talk to people, and I'm sure you guys get this too, we'll be talking to someone and they say, oh, no, I don't need to buy from Commons, or maybe I don't need to buy from Bone-In. I already support my local farmer, and I buy, my beef from him. And that's great. That's an amazing step. That's so much better than Whole Foods. And I'm going to speak personally about ourselves now. I can't speak for you, but at Commons, I know our farmers make more money when you buy from us than if you buy from them at the farmer's market, or if you buy from them at their on-farm store. Why?
No.
Because it's a collective consciousness. We work together in community. Because we have community, we can raise finances that are not possible for an individual farm alone, but also we buy whole animal, right? So if you go to a farmer's market and you buy $300 worth of beef, you're still not supporting that farm as much as a collective consciousness built around a community can support them. Because we come in, we nurture a relationship with them, we help them finance their cattle, we help them finance everything else in their life, we work with them in the ecological understanding of their land base so that we know they're regenerative, and we keep progressing that regeneration forward. So they're growing more grass every year, which means that they can hold more cattle or sheep or goats or whatever it is every single year. And so they're running more animal units on their farm every year, but their mortgage stays static. So that's how we're helping all of these farms. But also, in addition to that, when we buy whole cow, we write a $2,500 check to the farm. We manage the processing, we manage the hauling, we manage the inventorying and the distribution and the marketing and the invoicing and everything else. They just farm. But if you want your local farmer to sit at a farmer's market for 8 to 16 to 20 to, God forbid, 37 hours a week, who's paying him to do that? It's not the consumer, right?
They're actually paying to be there. Aren't they? They're paying to be there.
Yes. I had one farmer tell me that for the last 3 years, he feels like he had to pay people to pay him for his food. That's what his finances look like. That's not a resilient local food system. And at the end of the day, if this whole thing were to collapse, right? If the climate or our political system or the global relationship of these countries, were to collapse, who do you want on your side, right? The 3,000, mile trucker driver that's bringing freight loads worth of New Zealand beef to the port of whatever and bringing it in, or your local farmer. And if you want your local farmer to be the case, we have to start supporting them now, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the question comes up, and I'll ask you, have you ever had this feedback? Does it sound like we're trying to take control of a food market? Because I don't know, I've gotten that feedback from farmers as well as consumers. But there's also the farmers who understand what we're doing. And when they see, I'm buying from you at a retail price.
Yeah.
And then marking it up to make our business sustainable. There's a huge difference than I'm asking you to sell me something at a wholesale price.
Yeah. And
then marking it up intensely to make, a double margin. There are farmers in our network that are I don't know how you're doing it. You must be working on such small margins. And it's yeah, we are. Small margins compared to being the actual producer of that food, which is why now we're trying to get on this 11 acres of property, because now we can create more direct stream revenue, but that's going to require more work.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to do that work for the cause of trying to amplify community, the idea of community to show people that we can produce food for our immediate following, for the people who are around us, for the people who care. It's, and then you get we're near the biggest city in the world, and you can't feed all the people in the city. And it's there's just in the small state of New Jersey, in one county, we have 300,000 acres of preserved farmland. Meanwhile, we also have Lancaster County, which makes Hardin County look like an ant. And then we have the Hudson Valley, which is the same size as Lancaster.
Yeah.
So we can most certainly produce food. It's getting people who want to do that type of work, because everyone looks at farming as a poor man's job.
Yeah.
That's still the nomenclature around it. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but that's the shift that needs to happen. Like we need the farmers who own 4,000 acres of land to board horses and raise llamas for kids to come and pet to produce food. Like, you need to produce food. If you're getting tax write-offs, you need to be benefiting the community. You shouldn't be getting tax write-offs because you own farmland.
But alpacas are so cute.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
And they all poop in the same spot. That's the most fascinating part about llamas. They all poop in the exact same spot. No one knows that.
Yeah. No, I really, yeah, we get that a lot. We do. I was on the phone with one of our wholesale accounts, a local mom and pop owned grocer here in Central Virginia. And, when we first started talking to them and we asked, hey, do you guys carry local foods from local farms? And can we help you at all? How can we help you carry even more of this? And can we help you market it? Whatever it is, our spiel. And they said, yeah, we already buy from local farms. And I say, well, no, how many farms? I mean, are you comfortable with that? And they're so defensive. Like, no. Don't take the local marketplace. Like, we don't want some organization coming in and taking all of the profits and all of the margins and, paying the farms very little. We want to actually help farms. And God bless those grocers, those individuals who run organizations that really care about the local community and the local farmers, to the point that they would be on the phone with me pissed off that I am calling them. Also, God bless that they stayed on the phone and let me continue talking. Because I think what people realize when they actually learn more about the systems or the visions behind the systems of organizations like Bone In or Commons, what you realize is we are operating on the slimmest of margins, taking all of the risk or a lot of the risk, marketing the provisions for the farms in such a way that does not denude or reduce that farm's identity, right? So like when you order from Commons, and I'm sure it's very similar to if you were to order from Bone In and you were to get a beef box, let's say, a monthly subscription of beef. When you get it delivered, you would open the box and Commons is written on the outside of the box. So it's not Amazon or something else, or a bomb on your front porch. I mean, there's good things to know about branding. But anyways, you open the box and you forget about us, right? You pull it out and it says Dragonfly Farms. You pull it out, it says Crowfly or Running Tea or Hart Family Farms or Wildham Farm or Waddleum Farm. I can name you 35 other. Like, the point is, you're immediately immersed.
You're not throwing a common provisions.
Exactly.
Like,
no.
on every.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what that allows us to do is tell the farmer's story without celebrating their siloed or rugged individuality. We get to say, these are the families, these are the people that your order gets to support. These are the local counties or communities or cities that your dollar goes directly into to regenerate both the community economically and the community ecologically, so that we can have clean air and clean water to breathe and good finances moving through our community. And it doesn't have to go to some organization that has no billing at buy a Paleo Valley meat stick and tell me who makes money. Paleo Valley, I guess, but like their distributors make money, their co-packers make money, unknown processors, USDA inspected processors of unknown location, of unknown sizes, of unknown ethics, right? Somewhere along the processing chain, they're making money, and Paleo Valley charges. I mean, I know what it is. It's unbelievably small. 5 to 10% of the total income goes to local farms, and it's more like 5%, if not less. The point is, organizations like Common and Bone In, we are not constructed to be successful economically. It's impossible. This is not a model where people, investors will come in and say, oh, I'll buy this for $50 million, right? This is not Epic Provisions. Epic Provisions, right, was built and it was gorgeous. General Mills came in and said, I'll give you whatever it is, 50 million, 15 million, 500 million, who knows? I'll give you that for this organization because it's good looking and it has high margins and its P&L at the end of the year looks amazing. I will tell you, Commons Provisions P&L at the end of the year looks like a bunch of happy, local, nourished people and farmers that are still on their land, but don't look deeper than that. Because that's as good as it looks. And that's the only reason we're in business. That's the only reason we're in business. And so when you support organizations like ours, and I told this to the local retail shop, and I'll tell this to every consumer that could possibly order from us, right? When you purchase from organizations like ours, you're purchasing from a network of farmers and you lift the whole community up. And we do this by paying farmers near retail prices, if not retail prices themselves, with a slim margin so we can make it work. And that slim margin pretty much goes to storytelling. So we can go back to the farmers and tell their story even better. Because you guys have seen it. We're all on Instagram. Go on a farm's Instagram. It's horrible. And the farms that don't have horrible Instagrams are being managed. Their Instagrams are being managed by some digital marketing company. I mean, the number of farms I know that pay digital marketing companies to manage their Instagram because those farmers are just totally inept at managing social media. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
Meanwhile, our social media is a buyer of ours, so we barter.
There it is. But again, that's what working in the soul of your community truly looks like. Bartering becomes a possibility. We don't.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
That's what it was before this idea of scale, before this idea of let's produce food for the world.
Yeah.
Communities used to produce food for communities. This is why my grandparents lived to be 103 years old.
Yeah.
This is why my parents didn't make it to their 60s because they were buying everything in a box. I didn't say it, Kev. I almost did. They yelled at me for the F-bombs in our last discussion.
I can get heated too. Kevin, we all need you. We all need more of you in our life. No, I mean, I get heated because, and I don't know if just, if this isn't interesting, just get away. But I get heated because, the consumer right now, especially on Instagram or, some sort of social media, they are being trained to believe that these food manufacturing companies or plants are not that, but they're actually good looking farms. Like, drop some names. Like I was recently introduced to an organization called Pasture Bird, which raises, whatever it is, pasture raised, movable chicken houses on whatever. And they have great looking pictures. If you want to see what turning a dusty, desertified potato field looks like 2 years before Pasture Bird got there, and now it looks like 2 years later, go to Instagram, type in Pasture Bird and check them out. They're doing unbelievable ecological work. Unbelievable work. Now, there's problems, right? And one of the problems is they look so good to the global financing community that Purdue just walks in and buys them out. That's how good they look from a financial perspective. And so know nothing else about Pasture Bird, and one thing. And in my opinion, that one thing is too many things. That they are so able to produce a product with such pattern and unnatural rhythm that while maintaining good-looking profits, that they're actually investable, right? Yeah. They're sellable to Purdue. Purdue, the chicken producer of the world, comes in and says, "Ooh, that looks good." And let me tell you, if Purdue thinks anything looks good, that to me scares me.
It says a lot.
I don't want anything to do with what Purdue thinks looks good, right? And so this you said it earlier, Ron, and I'll stop rambling, I guess, but you said it earlier best. We have education work to do. And the only thing I'll add is we have like an uneducation or a de-education to do. We have to take consumers that think that Purdue buying Pasture Bird is a good thing, or walking into Whole Foods buying a grass-fed steak for $19.99 a pound of unknown origin, and it's not even grass-finished. It's grass-fed, grain-finished. We all know this, right? Is a good thing. Whereas you can go to Commons and get that same steak. It's verified regenerative, grass-born, grass-fed, grass-finished from your local community for half the price. We have to de-educate the consumer from the Whole Foods, from the Pasture Bird, from the Purdue to their local community. And when they get there, boy, is it good. I think it's good.
I think I've actually heard Kevin say de-educate people.
You must unlearn what you have learned, young Jedi.
There you go.
Well, also, we've been demoralized for a couple of years now, so we have to, remoralize. I think that's another process that needs to be encouraged right now. whatever that means, remoralization, because it's the antidote to the demoralization campaign that seems relentless at this point. So,
Heck yeah.
I mean, I think that John and I talk about this. There's this beautiful space now between farmers and consumers that there's opportunity for some creative people to get involved in getting the food from the farmers, lightening their load out there on the farm so they can be great farmers and they can have a marketing team and educators on their side supporting them, and just doing all that grunt work that they shouldn't really have to do. Like, this is absurd that farmers have to take on so much of these duties themselves. It's shameful. We should all be stepping up. They are the ones that are going to get us through this.
Yeah. Yep. It's true. I mean, it's like, I went to school for environmental science, landscape design. I got really passionate about sustainable design, but I couldn't find a firm that was even focused in that direction. And then when I got sick and started learning about nutrition and food and then how that related to soil, I started this path. And, Kevin and I connected, during that process years ago. Mm-hmm. And like his education on health and wellness and how that, and the microbiota and how that appeals to the microflora and fauna, like how similar and related they all are. It was obvious that this was the path that we needed to take. And man, but the amount of education, it's, I do educational seminars and I'll speak for an hour and a half and I don't know what to touch on. I don't know if I should touch on regenerative farming, nutrition, soil health, microbiome. I get so overwhelmed because you can spend days educating on just one of those topics, and I mean, it's the educational side is very big. And I think every person has their own reason for supporting something, whether it's, the convenience of your product, or I want to be healthy, or I want to support a local farmer, or, they understand soil and diversity and how they want to help the environment, support the environment, and limit plastic use, and know that everything is being reused. Like, there's so many driving factors that I think we actually have the benefit of with our business models, because we have those direct relationships. We can give you what you want. What do you want?
Yeah.
How do you want it? And, you don't like the steak from Lima Farms? Well, we carry steak from Beech Tree Farms. We also carry steak from Neshannock Pastures. We also carry steak from Red Hill Harvest. We carry, and they're all, some of them are raising different breeds of cows. Maybe it's the type of cow you don't like. Right. Yeah, totally. But you're never going to know any of this information. Yeah. If you're not involved, if you're not asking questions, if there's no cause for concern or care. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're often overwhelmed with the amount of education. Like you were saying, is it the soil? Is it this idea of regenerative agriculture? Is it nutrition? I think for us, I think it's all of that. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do. The consumer humanity, myself, my whole life, we have been brainwashed to think that, Nutri-Grain bars and cereal in the morning is a good thing. And even the food pyramid was just edited so that like wheat thins are just as healthy, if not more healthy than, grass-fed and finished ground beef now. The point is, there's a lot of work there to do. I think where we are at here at Commons is in 2023, our focus is to tell the human story. If we can bring out the humanness of our food, which is a weird way of saying it, but if you can't,
we're not cannibals.
Exactly. We're not cannibals, but if you can sit at your table,
because we don't have to.
But if you can't sit at your
stop cannibalism in one of the tribes, there's an account of them, showing them like, you can eat these pigs here, you can raise these pigs, and then they stopped cannibalizing. So
wow, so there you go. We have more work to do. It's more important work. It's like, bringing out the humanness in your food to us. It's like, yeah, it's a weird way of saying it, but like when you sit down tonight for dinner, right? If you can't say John and Mary Peterson produced this chicken breast on their land, right? And these carrots came from Waddalon Farm, right? And this salt came from an ethical mine, whatever. There's limits, of course. But if the grand majority of your foods on your plate, you can't pick out the human hands that produce that food, there's a problem. There's a huge problem. And then once you get to that point, what you'll realize is all of this food chain transparency and blockchain decentralized systems that everybody's talking about for bringing transparency back to the global food chain, it all sounds ridiculous. I need no crypto, whatever. I need no technology, no blockchains, no decentralized goobly gop technology to go over to the Shenandoah Valley, walk over to Verdant Acres and shake their hand and say, thank you for that amazing chicken breast. Thank you, John and Mary. That was great. Right? Like, that's transparency. That's resilience. That's beautiful. And so, like, maybe we should come up.
Once they establish that relationship,
it's over. It's great.
They can find ways to access that without having to, with the convenience of what we've been bred into in this culture.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not asking you to be a Luddite, right? Like, be a Luddite if you want to be a Luddite, but we don't need to all be Luddites to save the world. We just need to start focusing on each other.
Yeah.
Right? It's not convenient.
How can I get Mary? How can I get Mary's chicken?
Yeah.
Oh, there's options.
Yep.
There's options. We can bring it to you. Or if you have the time and you want to go visit a beautiful farm, take the day.
Right.
Like, we're just an alternative option to give access to our community the best that the farmers can provide.
Yeah. For sure.
The best farmers can provide, I should say.
Yeah.
I like to say that Ron's kind of like a personal shopper for you. He's the headhunter, finding the farms, doing that legwork that you don't have to do now. You don't have to go and see what peek at their chicken feed and see what's in the barn over there. Is that pesticide I see in that barn?
Right.
He's already done that all for you. Like, just
ask me the question. We can answer it. You want to? I'll tell you the answer. If you don't believe me, I'll get you on benefits of technology. Like, all these Amish co-ops wouldn't survive without technology.
Right.
So, that's the benefits of technology, something that we should be taking advantage of and using. Hopefully all the other pieces that come along with that are secure, but that's a whole other bigger, topic of conversation.
Yeah. And I think we're getting at something too. I mean, like, I think us, all three of us, and our families support what we're saying, and we're obviously on the same page. But it's interesting as we step back and we look at the entire market as is, the number of larger scale food manufacturing type organizations that are trying to currently build regional food supply chains. It's almost everybody. I mean, I was on the phone with Applegate. I've been on the phone with Timberland and General Mills and Paleo Valley and Wild Pastures and Rep Provisions. I mean, like, all of these organizations that are trying to build online food delivered models, some of them more successful than others, they're all trying to find ways to decentralize their supply chains.
Yeah.
Which all that tells me is we're onto something. Right? A regionalized or decentralized supply chain is what they see to be a good thing. Now, what you and I would say, I think, is we don't need a regionalized supply chain. We need a community of people producing food for their neighbors. There's nothing regionalized about that. It's just at place. Food stays at place. It's produced here and eaten there in the same community. But also, like, what is a supply chain? I've no idea what that terminology truly means. Like, you're telling me the sun shines on grass and cows eat it and humans nurture and manage it, and somehow the word supply chain comes into the fray. It makes no sense. But the point is, looking at it from a high perspective, even the largest organizations are admitting that the next step is to do the opposite of what they've always done. And so if supporting these kind of organizations is interesting to you, understand that they're trying to support our system. They're just not capable of it, maybe yet, maybe ever. Because they're just trying to throw, international type horrible products or horrible prices at our producers. And, they're not really interested in decentralizing their system, just their supply chain.
Just the supply chain.
But they think what we're doing is interesting.
I worked with a farmer years ago. She raised pastured pork, and when Amazon Fresh was actually acquiring Whole Foods, they started something similar to what we're doing, and they immediately within 6 months canceled it because they couldn't fulfill half the order. They couldn't fulfill any of the orders. She's like, they came to me asking me for 25 pork tenderloin. Like, where am I going to get 25 pork tenderloins?
we had somebody reach out for 3,000 pork tenderloins a month. And I said, you know, that makes no sense. I mean, that's a confinement model. That's the only way that could be produced is a confinement model. Oh, no, we want it verified regenerative. No. You want what you believe to be regenerative given you on a confinement model plate. That's the difference. We have to change that perspective.
Yeah, we do.
It's interesting, though, like an organization, Force of Nature, I'll be keynoting their conference in April. And so I should watch what I say in totality. But even organizations like them, like they're wanting people to believe they're making changes. Like their quote unquote supply chain is the exact opposite of building local communities and nourishing those same local communities with local nourishment for local bellies by local human scale verified regenerative farmers. None of that exists to them. Yeah. But their conference is all about local food and community. Right. And so this trend that you and I are walking in every single day, even these larger organizations are either desirous to be in our shoes or they want the consumer to believe that they are in our shoes. Yeah. And I don't know where they all fall. And I'm not going to say which way, you know, these organizations do. I won't speak into the heart of their organization, but I know where I fall. If local food isn't being consumed in local bellies by local farmers and those local farmers aren't the best that the locality has to offer, we're wasting our time.
That's it. I mean, it's really what it is. It's, you know, we have to
Drop
shift
them
our...
up.
I was about to say, you have me second guessing myself, Kevin. I was going to say, fuck you, Force of Nature. I said it anyways, but at least I thought about not saying it.
At least we got through the bulk of the conversation. Now people are finally shutting the window. These guys. Oh,
yeah.
Farmers, they swear like sailors.
Well, I mean, my whole thing, like listen to us, you know, going back and forth is, you know, can we produce enough food doing it the way that we're doing it? And we don't need to be your sole option, but we should be one option. And there's a lot other options out there, like direct to farm, where farmers have surplus. They have food that they could sell you. They shouldn't have surplus, you know, but they do. But they're going to work with us because we can help them grow sustainably. Oh, how many cows do you think you can help us move in a month? You know, oh, we could probably move 2 for you. Okay, well, I move 5 through my own direct-to-consumer market. So if I move 2 through you, then I'm moving 7 to a direct-to-consumer market.
Right.
You know, do I have the acreage to scale this? Can I go buy more acreage? Oh, well, support from the community will allow that farmer to go buy more acreage to produce more food. So it is. We do know this is a slow-growing process. You know, which I don't think we touched on. But we do know to rebuild community, it is a slow-growing process. And it's unfortunate that a majority of our population, you know, 90% of the population, 90% of them are spending most of their money in grocers, you know, and 10% with the farms. And that needs to be reversed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I could add to that real quick, you know, immediately I'm thinking about myself and, you know, what we buy from farmers and what we buy at the grocery store, like, you know, oils or vinegars or something that we can't get locally or salt or something. Mm-hmm. And then I think about if all of those food products would be available locally, it would almost seem to be a full-time job, right? To on Monday, go here to buy the salt and then drive across town to buy the corn tortillas from that amazing place that I love. And like you don't have to have corn tortillas, but I love corn tortillas. They're great. Anyways, the point is it would be a full-time job acquiring all of that food, which is another reason why I think Bone In and Commons is so important. You don't have the time as a local consumer to drive all over the county or all over the state to get all of the food you need. That's why the grocery store is so important historically, right? With the town commons, if you will, you go there, you get everything you need in one place. We don't have time, especially as modern humans fighting traffic, especially in your region or in the northern aspects of our region by DC, Alexandria, Richmond, and others. It's going to take you a half hour to go a couple city blocks, right? Yeah. And so the point is, let Commons and Bone In, organizations dedicated to maximizing and helping farmers scale and bringing opportunity back to farms and financial stability and everything else that we've discussed, aggregate all of those provisions for you. Don't drive to this farm to buy the chicken, and this farm to buy the pork, and this farm to buy the beef, and then this farm to buy the veggies, and spend an entire couple, days a week doing that. Get it
And
all
gas.
delivered to your door,
And gas.
or to the drop-off point, or at the local market. Like, get it aggregated for you. Not only is it cheaper, not only do you still get to support all of that community, but you don't have to waste days of your life.
And you're minimizing carbon footprints.
God, yes, that's a mic drop.
Well, the milkman, like milk is a product that was meant to be served fresh to your door, brought by a guy. So we're kind of like expanding the milkman into meats, produce, all kinds of stuff coming fresh in its proper cycle from farmers, keeping those supply lines moving quickly and
Yeah.
just getting right to your door, not sitting around waiting for someone to buy them, and also cutting down on that food waste because farmers can prepare what they need more on demand versus overproducing and
Yes.
sitting there and watching it all wilt and not get bought. It's like we're really solving so many little issues and tightening up our little food system. So I have faith in us. I think the brains involved with this movement are some of the best I've ever come across. So
Ron's,
I think
definitely.
I
I mean, like,
The way you talk, my friend, you are. That's like I aspire to be able to talk the way you do.
I just ramble. I
got my father's drunken Italian form of conversation.
I like it. I like yours more than you know. I think, Kevin, if I could add this on, like, thinking about food waste, like, and this is such a weird thing to say, especially to a consumer, but like I encourage people, go to Whole Foods and dumpster dive. I mean, I don't know how illegal it is, and if it's illegal, don't. I'm sorry, but like, dumpster dive. Realize that at the end of the day, they fill dumpsters worth of food, right? And then after you dumpster dive, fast for 2 or 3 days. Don't eat food and feel what it's like to not have food, and realize the unbelievable waste because of the surplus going into a grocery model that's reactive and allows consumers to participate in consumerism. And then it'll hit you. How much food we are wasting when the world's hungry, including our own, in Charlottesville, Virginia, starve. And then imagine that because it's convenient to you, that you're going to continue doing this. Mm-hmm. And when you go through that full cycle of introspection, if you will, if you still want to be consumer, that's fine. But in my opinion, get out of my way, because I have no interest, right? Mm-hmm. No interest. We need to be creating a better food system, not just for farmers. We've said that for the last hour. I get it. It's true. We need to be building a better food system for consumers, for resilience, for everything else. We've been saying that for the last hour, and it's true. But a better food system also exists to bring equity and stability to everyone.
Yep.
Not just the consumers that have the money to spend at Whole Foods, and not just the farmers who have the ability to be on land and do what they hopefully want to be doing.
Yep.
Producing food in a natural environment. Local food via local systems working in the soul of the community to then heal its soil is the only way, in my humble opinion, that equity and justice and accessibility and everything else that we know is so vital and important to creating a new and much more beautiful world, it only can exist there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you dumpster dive, I'm sorry. I don't know if that's illegal. I'll say it one more time. I have no idea.
I hear there's been like brawls happening at some of these dumpsters, So,
Jeez.
I don't know.
Don't go in the middle of the night. I don't know what else to say.
Might
But
be, like,
see the
thinking of
food
a
waste.
raccoon.
Yeah, the food waste.
Yeah.
100 billion a year.
Well, I worked in a market where it was an organic health food market, and at the end of the day, I was appalled, and I would have to secretly sneak out the stuff. They would be like, "All right, this is the stuff for the dumpster." I'm like, "Okay," and I would go right to my car, and I would run around with stuff and try to like find people to take this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I could not take it to the dumpster and I just couldn't do it. I'm like, no. So
That's crazy.
it's hard, but they don't want us taking it. It has to go to the dumpster.
Yeah.
I don't know what these policies are, just true insanity. Because, well, it's like when they overproduce cars, they have to just drive them all to a lot to just rot and rust away. I've seen the aerial shots. They have old airport, runways lined with brand new cars rusting because in order to keep the market moving the way they like it, they have to keep producing. Even if the sales are down, it just toss this stuff. So the food system's no different. I mean, 40% food waste in this country is dismal, shameful, and we're not feeding the world that way, guys.
No.
No.
Nor should we be feeding the world. I hate that whole term.
Right.
The world needs to feed itself in a localized manner, a global localism type approach. So,
I like that.
Just so you guys know, the kids are about to cycle in here. They've been playing in the rain for an hour and a half. It started raining hard a half an hour ago. So,
heck yeah. Well, I'm good if you guys are good.
Yeah.
I'll just
You guys
I'll
can
just
come
stop recording.